Good morning. Today is December the 31st. And as I was thinking about today's passage and coming towards the end of the year, the word that the Lord gave to me today was journey. And 2020 has been one roller coaster of a journey for us as a church, as a nation, and as a world. And when I think of Saul's conversion, his journey was rudely interrupted. It didn't turn out the way he'd expected, and I think for a lot of us that could be said same with 2020. But we can learn a lot from journeys. Sometimes it's not always the destination that's important, but it's how we travel and what we learn in the midst of a journey. So coming to the passage today, Saul sets out from Jerusalem to Damascus, and he is hell bent on arresting and persecuting and bringing the believers to justice. We've seen Stephen has been killed and martyred for the faith. So Saul, he has human authority, and he's out to get these followers of the way. That's what the early church was called. And I think that's an amazing word to describe us as Christians even today, the way. That word speaks to me about always being on the move, never being stagnant, never settling, committed to spreading the gospel, committed to bringing light to the world. Let's continue to be always on the way for Jesus. So in the passage, Saul is nearing Damascus, and suddenly he sees a bright light and he falls to the ground, prostrate, and then Jesus speaks to him. But that word suddenly in this context, I love that. I love that word suddenly, because it speaks to me of a God who can intervene and transform lives, situations and circumstances just like that. Now, some Bible commentators say that the conversion of Saul was the second greatest event in human history, apart from the life, death and resurrection of Jesus. The Apostle Paul brought us 13 of 27 New Testament books, and without Paul, you could argue there would be no Bible. So this suddenly, he suddenly encounters God, and his life is transformed. That's what God can do. Suddenly that miracle happens. Suddenly that hard-hearted person to preach for the gospel finds Christ. I have a ram's horn, a shofar horn, a Jewish horn that I love to blow prophetically, and then I pray over Corinthians 1:15-51. It talks about suddenly we will not all sleep, we will be changed, transformed at the sound of the trumpet. Let's hold on to that suddenly. The second word that jumps out at me is he fell prostrate. Prostrate to me speaks of position. God had to humble Paul so he could speak to Paul. Sometimes we need to humble ourselves so we can hear what God is trying to say to us. Paul was a proud man. He was an arrogant man. He knew the law, but he didn't know Jesus. And that was all about to change. In the passage, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Says Jesus. Who are you, Lord? Says Paul, I am Jesus, who you are persecuting. The Apostle Paul, Saul didn't know who Jesus was, but he was about to find out. And I love the way it says, I am Jesus. I am now, I am present. I am Jesus. So Saul's life has been radically changed. He'll become the Apostle Paul, no longer the chief persecutor, but the chief protagonist for the Christian faith. He continues on his journey to Damascus, but his journey has been interrupted and his life has been transformed forever. Saul now sees with the eyes of faith. He's been blinded temporarily with his natural eyes, but his mind, his spiritual mind, his spiritual sight have been opened. An independent, religious, zealous, pharisaical attitude has been changed to a dependent attitude upon the I am, and an interdependency on the followers of the way. So as we come to the end of 2020, I want us to remember who journeys with us. I am Jesus. Let's remember that he can act suddenly to transform situations for a good. And let's remember, like the Apostle Paul, to see with the eyes of faith and not just the natural eyes that the world sees with. God, our God was, our God is, and our God will always be bigger and greater than the circumstances of our life. Thank you.